salvation. Amen. Please be seated. I've had an exciting week. My daughter Claudia graduated from the University of Florida yesterday, and so we've had a few days. There was not only the service yesterday itself, the commencement service, but just little activities. Claudia's very artsy-fartsy. She's involved in theater and drama. She's the editor of the poetry magazine. So we went up and we saw a few student productions. They had a Shakespeare production of Merchant of Venice. They had a musical, South Pacific. And I have to tell you, a 21-year-old weedy boy trying to grow a mustache with a big Adam's apple is no, Rossano Brazzi has no words, okay? 21-year-old boys are not basso profundos. But it was a great time. We were so excited to see all the young people, the life and the enthusiasm. And I was sitting through South Pacific, and I enjoyed it. I guess I was being unkind because I was remembering the movie as the student play was undergoing, and well, there's a little bit of difference. And actually, at one point, I was really touched because they had a young man playing the part of Lieutenant Cable. Now, if you remember the film or the play, Lieutenant Cable is the Marine lieutenant who has been sent, who's go on a dangerous mission with the French planter. They're to go behind enemy lines and spy on the Japanese. But Lieutenant Cable has been to Bali High, and he has met a girl, and she is a Tonkinese girl, which is another word for Vietnamese girl. And Lieutenant Cable is conflicted. He's in love with this girl, but she's of a different race, of a different color and everything. And he sings a song. And I wrote down the words of this song. Well, actually, I looked them up because I just thought they were so appropriate to what we wanted to talk about today. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made, of people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you're 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. Lieutenant Cable is going through a crisis. It's so far away. It's Philadelphia, PA, Princeton, NJ. They're so far away. The world that he knows, the things that are right or wrong are all in conflict because he's in love. Now, this is a fun story. It's a fun movie. It's a fun play. But you know, these worlds have it completely backwards. You don't have to be taught to hate. Hate comes naturally to the human heart. It's love that has to be carefully taught. Love is what our readings in the Bible are about today. Love is what Christ came into the world to tell us, to share with one another. Friends, hate is a universal. It's a universal human condition that you don't have to be 6 or 7 or 8. You don't have to be white. You don't have to be black. It's everywhere. I have Chinese friends from Indonesia, and every so often the Indonesians rise up and murder the Chinese. I read an article in the New York Times about a new paper that came out about DNA in India. And they did this research on little villages in India. India has the caste system according to the Hebrew religion. And in an Indian village, people, if you're a dishwasher, you will marry a dishwasher, your children will be dishwashers. That's your role in life. And they found that a typical Indian village has more diversity of DNA than the whole of the continent of Europe. Norwegians and Sicilians are closer in their DNA than people who have lived side by side in an Indian village. Why? Because of the caste system. They don't intermarry. There's no movement. There is separation. When I was younger, 1999, I taught an 8-week semester at Bishop Gall Theological College. Anybody want to guess where that is? Harare, Zimbabwe. I taught in a short course for clergy in Harare, Zimbabwe, and at that point, Robert Mugabe had only had about 20 years to destroy the country. So he was only about 90% done. Now in Harare, in Zimbabwe, during the fight for independence, blacks and whites were at each other's throats. And most of the whites left Harare after it became Harare. In fact, most left Zimbabwe after it ceased being Rhodesia. The only people left were the few white farmers or the few people who were so old they didn't have the money or the family elsewhere to go anyplace. And there was a government rally, and in Zimbabwe, when there's a government rally, attendance is mandatory. You just don't go. In other words, oh, if the president shows up, we may or we may not go. Not in Harare. Everybody had to troop out to the central square to hear Robert Mugabe speak. And my friends, student friends, invited me to come. And it was a 3-hour harangue in this hot heat and the sunshine that ended with, "Kill the white man!" Because he is the source of all your problems. Now at that point, I felt particularly white and pink. But my friend said to me, "Oh, George, don't worry, we don't consider you to be white." Hate is a universal human condition. Anybody know who Jane Goodall is? She's the woman who went to Africa for 30 years to study chimpanzees. And she had all these wonderful TV documentaries you see on public television. But she waited till she retired to release her most, to her mind, unsettling information, which is monkeys murder each other. Monkey tribes engage in warfare. They are savage. They kill. They kill for no reason. Monkeys are as evil as people can be. Monkeys don't have to be taught to hate. They hate already. The human heart doesn't have to be taught to hate. It hates already. Anybody who's worked with small children knows that they form tribes very easily. And that they form clans and cliques. When I was a little boy, the church school I went to in the suburbs of Philadelphia, had very few African Americans. Maybe 1 or 2 out of a class of 100. But a third of the class was Jewish. So how did the boys break apart? The Jews and the non-Jews. Blacks weren't in our equation. They were honorary white people. But we, at 6 and 7, knew very well that you were a Jew. And I was an Episcopalian. My daughter, at high school down in Vero Beach, a generation later, there are many Jewish people in Vero Beach. When sometimes they would forget their lunch, and being cheap that I am, I wouldn't give them cash to buy it. I'd say, okay, I'd go over and bring it. Then I'd go over to the cafeteria and I'd look in, and guess what? It looked just like 1940s Alabama. Why? All the Haitians sat at one table. All the African Americans, who don't sit with Haitians, sit at another table. All the rednecks, the boys with the camouflage hats, sit at one table. And the whites here and the Asians there. And because my children were in the honor class, the minority they didn't like were the Asians. Because all these Chinese kids were their competition. I have never taught my children to hate Chinese, but their rivals are totally unknown to me. You've got not to be taught to hate. It just comes naturally. That is why Jesus Christ keeps going on and on and on about love. God's love for you. If God loves you so much that he gave his only son to the end that you might be saved, your response is to love him back. And if you love him back, you will take that love and turn around and love your neighbor. The pain of this life, the hurt, is not caused by our being taught badly, but by our not being taught fully. different, whose eyes are oddly shaped, whose skin is a darker hue, Rogers and Hammerstein tell us. And we can only do that absolutely if we love the Lord Jesus Christ. One day, my life has changed dramatically, tremendously, when I took that final step. I was already an ordained priest. But when I finally took that final step to love unreservedly, unconditionally, those whom God created. Not just those whom I liked, or those who I thought would be nice to me, but to love everybody. See, before that, I had, if you will, a condescending love. Oh, you poor person, you. I will love you so long as you don't move next door. Or your son doesn't date my daughter. If you're on the other side of Philadelphia, that's fine. I can love you at a distance. But Christ did not die for me to be comfortable. He died for me to have eternal life. He died for me, and he died for you, and he died for the person down the street whom we may have nothing in common with, yet still we are to love him. I like being an Episcopalian. I think we do it right. There are churches but we've not always done it right. I can remember going on little trips downtown to Philadelphia to see the Independence Hall when I was a child, and all the different Liberty Bell and Betsy Ross's house. And then we would go to see Christ Church in Philadelphia, which is just across Independence Square, and that's where Benjamin Franklin was buried, and that's where the Continental Congress worshiped, and it's the Episcopal Church in downtown Philadelphia, and it is gorgeous, it is beautiful, it is just full of Americana. You feel, my country, 'tis of thee. And you look around this place, and then you look upstairs, and what's up there? That's the slave gallery. I didn't know we had slaves in Philadelphia. Well, we didn't, but that's what you call it. Because at the time this church was built, and as the time that our founding fathers were talking about all men are created equal in the sight of God, so long as the blacks are upstairs and don't have to sit next to us. Now, I'm not going to pick upon the past, because heaven knows the present has as much grief and ill and sin as the past does. But a true church, a loving church, is a church that makes no distinction for or against based upon the shape of your eyes, the hue of your skin. Years ago, when I first graduated from seminary, I was trying to find my first job as a priest. And I interviewed at a church out in California. I'd never been to California. It was fun. It was St. Margaret's of Scotland in Palm Desert, California. And this was neat. You fly into Palm Springs. This is pretty neat, nice Southern California. Okay? No gang warfare. They point out where Frank Sinatra's house was. It's that sort of Southern California. And I assisted at a service. They wanted sort of to try me out, and I served, in the deacon's role. I was a deacon at that time for one service, and I noticed a couple walk into church before the start of the service. And I said, isn't that Gerald and Betty Ford? I know who they are. They know me. That's President Ford. It's about 15 years after he left office. And he sits down, and in the row in front of him is a man in a suit wearing sunglasses. He's got to be in the Secret Service. And a man in the row in back wearing sunglasses. Now the church begins to fill up, and I guess people traditionally gave the Fords space. But the service begins, and then this Mexican family comes. And it was the sort of Mexican family you don't see around here. You see it in Southern California. Short, very short, swarthy, with their long sleeve shirts with the collar buttoned and the sleeves buttoned and sort of dusty, and a little heavy. And there's no place to sit, so that they come down and they sit. Betty's on the aisle. I guess that sort of tells us about that presidency. And Jerry's the next one in. And next to him sits this little Mexican date picker from, the Coachella Valley or something? They've got the beautiful people in this part of the area, and then they have the people who pick the dates. In Florida, we call them grapefruit pickers. But here you have in the church, you have the most powerful man in the world seated next to a date picker. And in God's eyes, not one is more important, nor is one less. All are loved. All are valued. And that image of the President of the United States sitting next to, kneeling next to a date picker is the symbol of what Christian faith is about, of love is about. Knee to knee, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, together in fellowship with one in God. Not Mexicans over here, blacks over there, Episcopalians here, but all in one fellowship and one family. This is the message of the book of Acts that we're reading today. Chapter 11 begins with Deacon Philip. He's sent away, and there's a fight amongst the disciples. They're all Jews, and they believe in Jews for Jesus. Nobody else. But Jesus had ministered and witnessed to the woman at the well, a Samaritan woman. Now, some people who read the Bible say, oh, Jesus thinks women have cooties. Oh, that's nothing to do with it. She was a Samaritan. And the Samaritan were the traitors, those who had been in bed, literally and figuratively, with the Romans. They were part Greek, part Roman, part Jewish. They were traitors. They called themselves Jews. They read the Torah, but they were those who had gone over to the enemy. And Jesus witnessed to that woman and treated her with dignity and respect. So Philip says, I'm going to Samaria, and I'm going to preach to the Samaritans and share the good news of Christ with them. And the other disciples say, I don't think that's a good idea. James, the brother, it was the beginning of what we call the Judaizer controversy. Are you a Christian, a Jew who happens to be a Christian, like I'm a Christian who happens to be an Episcopalian? Or are you a Christian without limit of race or tribe? The Apostle Paul was one of those who said we need to bring this word to the world, not just to Jews. Well, Philip has a vision. He's told to go down and meet with these Gentiles, and the disciples are there, and they begin to pray up, and as the book of Acts says, the power of the Holy Spirit descended upon them. Now, the disciples had seen Pentecost. They had seen Jews from Cappadocia to Britain to Spain to Rome, all of different languages, but united in a glossolalia of tongues as the Spirit overwhelmed them on the day of Pentecost. And now they're seeing the same thing, but with Gentiles. And so the disciple turns to the other disciples and says, if God's Spirit can be made manifest in these, who are we to say that we can't speak to them about Jesus Christ? Christ came for the world, not for the us, not for the elect, not for the in crowd, not for the right tribe. He came for all people, regardless of the shape of their eyes or the hue of their skin. And it is Christianity that needs to be carefully taught, not hate. Hate's natural. Hate is a result of the fall of Adam. It's been there from the beginning. It'll be there towards the end because we're broken, flawed people. But only Christ, only His love can pull us out of that hatred and give us a world worth living in for a God who thought it worth dying for. Jesus Christ gave His life for all people. You, me, everybody. Yet sometimes we want to put up barriers and lines. And it's not because we're chosen evil, we've been taught evil. It's just because that's the natural thing for us to do. I can remember when my children were 3 years old, we were living in England. And they went to a nursery school They went to the Balliol College Nursery School in Oxford. It was at the cricket pavilion at the college in Oxford. And they came home and they told us about their first class, and they had such fun because they met a little girl. They called her German. Okay, that's a funny name. Well, as we went over and we got to know the nursery school, guess what? There are a lot of Germans there. And at 3 years old, the English speakers and the Germans had already divided in tribes. The Germans had nothing to do with the English had nothing to do with the Germans, and the Americans just looked on and watched. 3 years old. And this is run by the vicar's wife. This is not being taught to the children, it's just how humans are. Tribal, clannish, oriented towards people like us. And that's part of the scandal of Christianity. It seeks to break what is natural, prejudice, and put in its place something unnatural, which is love. This is the call that Christ made upon your life. To love your neighbor as yourself doesn't mean loving your nice neighbor and ignoring the guy who parks on your lawn, who doesn't take in his trash the day after. It means loving them all. Now, it doesn't mean they can be excused for parking on your lawn. Believe me, that's one of my perpetual gripes. But you still need to love them anyway, because that is the call of Christ. Friends, this is hard. This is not natural. This is not what we want to do. But if we are to be Christians, we are to love and to be taught how to do it. Amen. Friends, would you please stand and join